and a warm welcome to this international online midweek service. What a glorious day this is. Tonight we are so grateful that the Lord has especially set aside this evening for us to receive a special package from Him. Congratulations to yourself for promoting yourself this past Sunday. What a joy it is to be given an opportunity by God to partner and to sow with this marvelous work. It was alarming for many of us, and it's alarming for us when we felt like there was no opportunity to give. But finally, this past Sunday, many of us got the opportunity to partner with this great work. We feel energized. You feel like, finally, the Lord has given me permission to hear such things. So we are so glad. We know that you are excited for the service this evening. Pastor Koramba, joined by Pastor Chikuni. And we will excitedly and with a lot of anticipation, introduce the voice of God, the prophet. Man of God.
What a week.
What a week. And,
a week of blessing.
Indeed. And last night was the cut-off night for many people, for the sowing opportunity. But we are hoping and we are trusting. We have faith that this Sunday, another opportunity will be opened up for another class of those that want to partner. But it's interesting, man of God, that 2 weeks ago, this session was postponed. And the voice said to us, you must thank God that we did not have a midweek service.
Yes.
And then on Sunday, we have an opportunity to sow. It's as though the magnitude of what we're about to receive now cannot be given to us unless we partner and we connect through a seed that opens the channels of understanding within us as spirits. And so that's why we feel energized. That's why we feel like finally God has given us permission to hear these marvelous things that no ear has ever heard before.
I believe biblically, you look at any time that God wanted to do something extraordinary.
Yes.
Such an opportunity will be availed. And I believe that what the voice has done over the last couple of days, giving us that opportunity to partner, I believe something amazing is about to come in somebody's way. I really believe that our lives are about to be transformed.
Yes.
I know our lives have already, we're in the process of being transformed, but I believe we are now being taken to that dimension of the word that we never thought possible.
It's concerning and it's exciting because treasury of the glorious rest, and then God doesn't ask me to partner.
The equation doesn't work out.
It does not work out, and so the joy is overwhelming, and we are so happy because you look at it and you see the word that comes, you see the preparation that goes into it, you see the live streams that are done, you see the work that is being done, even behind the scenes. And you wonder, if I am not given an opportunity to partner with this work, who is partnering with this work? And it's impossible for the individuals that are holding hands with this ministry to be at the same level with those that are just recipients and not participating as a great company.
The magnitude of the word defines the nature of the partnership. It's a simple and straightforward statement.
Wow.
What God is giving us through the voice, obviously the blessing has to be equated in some form. And we really thank God. We really thank God for the voice and this opportunity and this time. And I really don't want to take people's time because I know tonight is that night where the journey begins.
Indeed. Zaphnathpaneah, National Solutions. The voice said this will be the longest.
And it's turning out to be.
It's turning out to be. In this time of isolation where God is speaking to us things that we were never ready to receive, but finally now the time has come.
Yes.
For us to receive such information, and in a time of isolation, a time where God has separated us,
set us apart,
the out-called ones.
Yes. And we thank God for that.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Let's get into this. We know that you are now ready. We are ready. We've been expecting this day ever since, especially after Sunday. We'll now introduce the voice. Greetings, our Father.
Thank you.
Father, I'm sure you can see that we are different people. We needed to have the Sunday service, and we were so desperate for that service.
I can see.
We were so concerned why we were not having such an opportunity, because we understand that the God who has resources that cannot be exhausted comes to me and asks me to partner with a work of this magnitude. It's not an invitation that you get every day. It's not an invitation that you get in a lifetime. So, Father, we understand the gravity of the position that you have now placed us in. We know that our location is different.
Sure. It's true.
Father, thank you so much for today. We are ready to receive Zaphnathpaneah, National Solutions. Thank you so much, Father.
Again, thank you for having me tonight. And I'm delighted to be presenting to you some of the ideas that are spiritual, ideas that can be applied and be implemented in our day-to-day activities. And I believe that is our ultimate goal coming here every time. We want to offer as much help as possible to those who are willing to be assisted and you're looking forward to have a better life, especially when it comes to the things of God. This is why we are here.
Thank you.
And indeed, yes, it has been a very busy week, a week of dedication and commitment, where people get a chance to exercise either their obedience or their disobedience. It's an interesting thing. And I know majority of our people cannot wait for Sunday as well.
Yes, yes.
But anyway, we thank God, and we will have that opportunity on Sunday, like we promised, of calling out certain individuals, which is something that really matter in the things of God. So, but today we are not on that. We are on the Zaphnathpaneah, like we promised, dealing with national solutions. And to think that up to now we haven't yet touched on the nation as we know it, but we are dealing with nations that are individuals.
Yes.
Okay. Persons or personalities that are nations. And we are solving those problems every time we come here, and let's get on to it tonight.
Thank you, Father.
Let's see how much space we can cover. But you, as usual, you have the right pastors to come in at any point where you feel I might have lost the majority of our viewers. They have no way of raising their hand to say, please elaborate on that. But I know you're doing a great job by representing them and asking me questions that they would have asked me if they were here, and which is an interesting job that you're doing. So we might not be in a position sometimes to be focusing on messages that you're sending, whilst we are broadcasting sometimes, what that does to the preacher. Yes. Because there are people who are so much afflicted to an extent where it is easy for them to move off topic, and someone is in pain, and whatever you are saying is not even hearing you because of the pain. Someone's mother is in the hospital, and she's about to lose somebody who is so close and so important to her or to him. So despite the topic that you're dealing with, probably his focus is just, how can I get my mother to be prayed for? And then in trying to go through messages while you're ministering, you come across such, and then obviously your compassion is drawn towards that area, and then you lose your track. So we try, by all means, in as much as we will always have an opportunity to go through messages that our viewers are sending. It is important that we remain focused as well. So you might have to be picking questions. You have an opportunity to be reading those text messages that people are sending whilst I'm just flowing. But if you pick a recurring question, then you can always bring it on so that we can address it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. So before we start anything else, we are good to go.
We are not good to go, Father. No, we are not. What you taught has raised a lot of questions. And Pastor Chikuni has been doing the honors of gathering a few of those. And he has them for us.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, my Father, for the opportunity to ask this question. Basically, I'm going to try and personalize this question that is deriving from the comments that came when you preached the last message, when you gave us the last message. There's a statement that you said, but before I read out that particular statement, like I said, I'm going to try and personalize it a bit. I'm representing those that we're asking. And basically, this is the crux of the question. And I'll say it in this form, my Father. I've lived in Africa. I've traveled a bit in Southern Africa. And worldwide, there seems to be a problem in terms of governance or rulership. That problem has led to what I perceive and what my brothers and sisters believe also, that there are people who we presume innocent, that are being born, whose lives are being destroyed, whose destinies are being aborted, specifically because of those that rule over them. And this is the statement that you said. There is a qualification that qualifies the unqualified to rule over you. My Father, please elaborate on that statement. Thank you.
Okay, I think I would like you to maybe repeat the last part, because the rest of it was probably an analysis, but maybe then your question came right at the end. I would like to hear that. It's important that people get to hear that question, and then we get into the answers, okay?
Yes, Father. My Father, you said there is a qualification that qualifies the unqualified to rule over you. Please elaborate, my Father.
There is a what?
A qualification.
A qualification. That what?
That qualifies.
The what?
The unqualified.
To what?
To rule over you.
And what is your problem there? What is their problem? Yes, I said that, but where is the problem?
Probably that's why I tried to explain, but to give an analysis. Children are being born. People are living their lives. And no matter how spiritual we may be, I'll be very carnal on this one. No matter how spiritual we may be, rulership or leadership affects us in certain ways, and lives are being destroyed and destinies are being aborted specifically because of that. And there comes a statement that seems to imply that those that are born, whose destinies are being destroyed, those whose lives are being destroyed by people, seem to contribute somewhere in qualifying the unqualified to rule over us. Let me use us.
All right. I think the reason why this question is being raised is because that scenario seems to be unfair.
Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
And obviously, as a messenger of the good word of the Lord, you would not have majority of people supporting you when you present such an idea that a person is involved in the wrong governance.
Yes, yes.
That he is living in, or that he is living under, or that he is experiencing.
Yes, yes.
Because people have a tendency of always wanting to distance themselves from everything that is wrong. But I said that with a very good intention, with the intention of trying to help you realize how much you have also contributed to the establishment of wrong governance. Yes, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
Indeed, my Father.
But that is the truth. We are contributing in so many ways, starting with the contribution that is so deliberate, where you get to choose a wrong person, a person that has never exercised his leadership skills in any of the sectors available. Then you entrust him with a position that requires a validated qualification, a position that requires experience. And a man without that experience finally gets a position to rule and to reign over you with your consent. The consent comes in different forms. If you allow me, I may have to address that because I'm looking at the length of the answer. It's quite long. You may not even enjoy being here tonight. It's quite long.
Father, this is what we are here for.
It's quite long.
That's why we're here for.
Let me find ways of running away from that question and get to something lighter. But I'm going to show you, obviously, even if it is not today, but eventually, I'll shed light on that, and you are going to agree with me that indeed we all did something that then qualified the unqualified
To rule over us.
You must understand what God meant when he said to Adam, in the day that you eat of the tree of knowledge, knowledge of good and knowledge of evil. You shall surely die.
Yes, Father.
And when God said that, I helped you see what then happened as a result of that declaration by a God who is not a man, a God who cannot lie. And the reason why that God cannot lie, it is because that lie will immediately become a reality. Even if he tries to lie, that lie becomes correct, it becomes the truth, it becomes accurate.
Yes, Father.
Because when he speaks, his word is the material that he uses to create the non-existent. He cannot lie, not because he is not interested in lying, but because the power that comes out of his mouth doesn't then allow that word to go in vain. That's how powerful our God is.
Yes, Father.
So if we say God is not a man that he can lie, as for me, when I look at a statement like that, I look at it from a spiritual perspective.
Yes, Father.
And I can go beyond even the writing to say, that person who wrote that might have seen what can happen when God speaks. What happens after God has spoken.
Yes, Father.
He cannot lie.
Yes, Father.
So if he tells you in the day that you eat, you what?
Surely die.
You surely die. And that's exactly what you must expect to see happening.
Yes, Father.
Because then what is more deadly and what is more dangerous, apart from the tree of knowledge, is the word. Who spoke, who said that you die in the day that you eat. So it is no longer the poisonousness of the tree, but the intensity of the word that commanded you not to eat. He cannot lie. How do I know that he cannot lie? I'm just thinking. Maybe when he said, "Let there be light," what he was trying to do is to lie. And then what happened? There was light. He cannot lie. Because that statement was a lie, considering the prevailing darkness on the face of the deep.
Oh, yes.
Opening your mouth and speaking light, that's a lie. That's exactly what he did. And the light appeared. Let's say in his attempt to lie, he cannot lie. So having such a God warning you not to eat, and then he tells you the consequence, the price, the penalty of feeding on such a tree, he says, you die in the day. And then I dealt with that some years back, trying to show you how that happened exactly as the Lord had spoken.
Yes.
That he had to die in the day that he ate. Because we all know that Adam at 930 years, the Bible declares him dead. He died. But probably maybe he ate of that tree maybe the 5th day, maybe the 6th day, maybe the 7th day, maybe a week after God had told him not to eat. But that particular day that he ate of that tree, we don't see death occurring. So you might think that God lied because he said in the day, but you must understand the meaning of the day according to him, what he meant by the day. To a certain extent, if you study about the day of the Lord in the book of Peter, 2 Peter 3, verse number 8.
2 Peter 3, verse number 8. But, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day,
so if he tells you in the day that you eat, you will die, yes?
that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years.
Okay, so the one day with the Lord, with us, it's like 1,000 years.
Yes,
okay? So with the Lord, the Lord's day is unto us like 1,000 years.
Yes.
Okay? Right? So if he tells you that in the day that you eat, you die, that's exactly what happened with the man who ate the tree. He did not finish the Lord's day. 930, he had to die.
Yes.
So he died in the day that he ate, according to the Lord's day. Okay. And also, spiritually, we know it happened again in the day that he ate. He also died. He was separated from God. So both spiritual death and physical death, he died both deaths in the same day that he ate of the forbidden tree. But you then must understand what the Lord meant by death.
Yes, Father.
Because you don't have death occurring instantly. Death takes time to occur. People die before they die.
People die before they die.
Yes.
Wow.
In the prophetic, you can meet a person and know that he is in the process. The process of death has already been activated. The man is on his way while he is still here on the earth. There is a way that a man appears when the spirit of the man is about to depart. You ask me, and then I'll explain to you later on that one. Maybe not today, of course. But death was already at work until the man had to finally die. Why is it that after the man ate of that tree, God comes, what he then pronounced over them was not death? You must understand there is something that you're not seeing when he said you die in the day that you eat. God coming, what he should have pronounced over the man was death. Why is he talking about the sweat? If the sweat is not in the category of death. Why is he talking about the pain, the labor pain that Eve would have now to undergo by reason of that disobedience? Why is God promising them children, that you would give birth to children? Let me remind you, God had told them that in the day that you eat, you die. What they're supposed to be doing now is dying, not giving birth. that tells you that all these experiences of pain, poverty, labor falls under the category of death. So, let me drop this. I don't know if you can get it. I don't know if you can swallow it. If you can swallow it, I don't know if you can digest it. Isn't it strange that a man and a woman that are now dead according to God, they go on to reproduce? Because if God cannot lie, if death is already working in them, and they go on to have intimacy, and a dead woman conceived, and she became pregnant, and a dead man was able to impregnate a dead woman. At the level of death, still there is production. At the level of death, still there is multiplication. The death will not manifest in the numbers of children. The death will manifest in the quality of the children. So we can be 14 million in a nation. It's a manifestation of just the multiplication of a fallen man. If you want to see the life, you see the lifestyle of the 14 million. Now, I know it's very hard to understand, but I'm saying, if he really died, if she really died in the day that she ate, from the day that she ate, that same moment, there was a downgrade that occurred.
Yes.
There was a demotion. Now, I told you before that the instruction given to Adam by God to multiply and feed the earth, the Adam that God said, feed the earth, and the Adam that then filled the earth are two different Adams.
Yes, Father.
I said that.
Yes,
before.
Father. Yes, Father.
I have to keep on repeating some of these things because God gave Adam an instruction to multiply, to reproduce, and fill the earth with his kind, the obedient Adam.
Yes, Father.
And before he produced himself, he then sinned. Then goes on to fulfill a commandment given to the first Adam, who was obedient, a sinless Adam. So when God said multiply and fill the earth, he was talking to an upright man before he fell. And then that upright man did not multiply. He waited until he sinned, therefore becoming a different Adam, who was never instructed by God to multiply. So had Adam multiplied himself before sin, we're going to have a different generation.
Yes, Father.
Then he goes on to obey God, one instruction after disobeying another instruction. One instruction that he obeyed is multiply. After disobeying an instruction, do not eat. So he's now a different Adam.
Yes, Father.
So what is coming out of him, what is now being multiplied on the face of the earth, is a different race according to God. So we now have a different father, a different mother, and different children. This is not the generation that God intended the earth to have.
Wow.
But all this is happening, according to me, it's happening after they are dead. Because when God says it, you're gone. You're gone. Whether today or tomorrow, you're dead. Death is already working in a man, and yet that man wakes up in the morning, he goes, he puts on a nice suit, a nice tie, he goes to work. A man who's dead can organize a wedding. People are still going on to marry while they are dead. Houses are being built by dead people. The earth is the land of the dead until they are born again.
Wow.
Don't look at the achievements.
Wow.
Don't look at the movement. That a person can raise his hand, can walk, and you think he's alive. All that can be done in a certain manifestation of death. There is a death that allows you to go on and marry, go get a job, go get a degree, and you graduate, yet you're a dead man. There is a type of death that allows you to go on with your daily.
Wow.
So you have to be careful now. That's why I'm saying we contributed, because in that state which is fallen,
Yes, Father.
you then deserve a fallen leader. You see, let me
Please, Father,
not-
please, Father. Please.
Help us, Father.
Please.
Help us,
Please.
Father. Please help us.
I'll touch that in detail not today, because
Father, please. Father, please.
see what the Lord said about the angel.
Yes, Father.
Because there is a leadership. Israel, moving from Egypt to the promised land, they have the leadership of Moses.
Yes, Father. Exodus 23, verse 20.
Yes, Exodus 23, verse 20. Yes.
Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions.
What is he going to do if we are to provoke him? And then God tells me that he will not pardon. In not pardoning my transgression, what is he going to do?
Yes,
You see now?
Yes, Father.
What is he then going to do that will serve as proof that I have not been pardoned? What is he, that angel, going to do along the way to success, along the way to prosperity as a nation? We are being led, but I want you to look at the organogram,
Yes, Father.
the structure of leadership that Israel has. Not only do you have Moses, you also have the leaders, the elders of Israel. Remember when he came back from the burning bush, the first people that he had to gather were the leaders of Israel.
Yes, Father.
So they had leaders while they were in bondage.
Okay.
Yes, Father.
So at any level of bondage, you still need leadership. Okay, you have to understand that. But it is the quality of the leadership that brings you out of your bondage. It's not the leadership, the quality. All the elders of Israel in Goshen,
Father.
they were there to ensure that they stay well in a foreign land. And for them to remain there, they needed leadership. But for them to come out, another leader with a different quality had to be employed, hired by God, to come and deliver other leaders as a leader and the rest of the people. So I'm showing you the structure. So now, apart from Moses and the elders of Israel, you also have the angel above them.
Yes, Father.
And above the angel, you have the Lord himself. Yes, Father. So if the leadership that reigns over you does not submit to the leadership that is above, then you have a problem now. That is the first qualification You must look out for that qualification. What qualifies a leader, first and foremost, is the fact that he also is being led. A leaderless leader must never be given a leadership responsibility. Does the leader have a relationship that is intact with the superior leadership, which is spiritual, above? So, here's the issue now. I'm raising a question, pastors. If he's not going to pardon my transgression, so what is he going to do? It means he's going to do something about it.
Yes, Father.
But what he's going to do is something that we have not sat down to study as a nation. Because every nation is given a spirit that leads it. Remember, we're dealing with the spirit of things. Right? So, what needs to be done is for a committee to be set up which is able to identify the spirit that governs that particular territory. A committee. And what qualifies the members of that committee is their sensitivity to the movements of the spirits. Their level of discernment of spirits has to be high. That's the only qualification. Not physical age. No. Not academic qualifications. No. Their level of discernment of spirits is what qualifies them to belong to that committee. That helps the nation to identify the spirit given to them by God to guide them, to lead them. And they make sure that that spirit is not provoked. This is just midweek service. We don't have to say much, but hear me. There are beings that are present with us today, which possess flesh that is called strange flesh. God knew that at some point superior leadership would be needed. Superior in terms of beyond what we have. But are you spiritual enough? I asked you a question some weeks back to say, if you are in Sodom and there is 10 men in Sodom, and by reason of those 10 men you are spared with your wife, with your children.
Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
Are you ever going to sit down with your children and tell them that my children, my wife, it's not because of me that you're still alive, it's because of that man? Do we have people spiritual enough to identify the reason for their existence in a nation? Because if you don't have a currency, you're supposed to perish as a nation. if you don't have rain, you are supposed to perish as a nation. If you are not physically equipped enough in terms of weapons, you are supposed to perish as a nation. But if you don't perish, then you must give credit to something else. What is that? If that something is not a who? Wanting to believe that we are all the same. I hammered on that last Sunday. We are never the same. Because if you believe that people are the same, why vote? I'm good at catching you at the moment you lie, because when you say that and I look at what you do, why do you go on to vote? If they are all the same, why choose? People are different. If people who are not even born again are different, how about those that are born again? We are different. First thing we have to identify the spiritual leadership elected by God to reign over a nation.
Thank you, Father.
Who is the man that God himself voted for? Because God does vote. He appoints. He said it one day when a man was coming out of the water. The heavens opened and he said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Obey him." He repeated the same at the Transfiguration. And not voting for such an individual, what you're voting for is chaos. Where is Jesus in a nation? Where have you placed him? What's his role? Is he considered? Is he consulted? Who is he in a nation? Where Jesus is placed, that is a determining factor. But apart from Jesus, because I've heard people saying there's only one mediator between man and God, Jesus Christ, the man. And that's exactly what the Bible says. He is the mediator between God and man. That is Jesus. Apart from him, he says, "I am the way. No one gets to the Father but by me." So he is the mediator. He stands between God and man. But what people underestimate is the mediation that a man plays between Jesus and the man. The one mediator between man and God is Jesus. But between man and Jesus, there is a mediator. The Bible, the book of Romans says, how can they believe unless there is a preacher? It means your connection, unless you are connected, there is a need for a man to mediate that relationship, for one to be born again. How can even salvation be possible without the mediation of a human being, a preacher? You cannot believe in a God unless there is a preacher. You found it.
Romans 10 verse 14. How then shall they call on him In whom?
They want to call on him. The him there is the Lord. They want to call on the Lord. Okay?
In whom they have not believed.
That's verse what?
Verse 14, Father.
Start from maybe verse 13 or so.
For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord.
The Lord is Jesus Christ. Whosoever shall call upon the name of. So people would want to call upon the name of the Lord. The Lord is who?
Jesus.
Okay, but before they do so, yes? Keep on going.
How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed?
So they are not going to call upon the name of the Lord unless they have believed in the Lord. Yes,
Father. And how shall they believe in him?
How shall they believe in the Lord?
Of whom they have not heard.
So there must be somebody coming to talk about the Lord.
Yes,
and who is going to do so? So you see now there's mediation taking place there.
Yes, Father.
So the Lord Jesus can be there, can be present, but unless he is introduced to the minds of the people. So it doesn't start by the nation calling upon the Lord. It starts by believing in the Lord. It doesn't start by believing in the Lord. It starts by hearing. Because they cannot believe in whom they have not heard.
Yes.
Okay? Yes,
Father. And how shall they hear?
How shall they hear?
Without a preacher.
So it starts by hearing, and then believing, and then calling. And then he goes on to say, how shall they also even hear if there is undermining of the preacher? If you think you can do without the preacher, remove the preacher, then Jesus disappears. So there is that mediation that people don't understand because of their lack of spiritual maturity. So who is this man mediating? If he is like the rest of the people, if Moses is like the rest of the children of Israel, then there is danger. That person in between ought to be superior.
Yes, Father.
Ought to be different from the majority, from the rest of the people.
Yes, Father.
So we are not the same. Now, let me say this. When you walk on the face of the earth, you must possess qualities of the Spirit. And you must make sure that the qualities that you possess are active. Because they are beings, I'm bringing it again, present today, dotted around different places. Beings that you may find in places where there is not even life, yet you find an individual there. The spirit of things. We are missing out on so many supernatural things happening around us because we have limited the supernatural to only the invisible. And we have neglected the tangible. And we have undermined the physical because we lack spiritual discernment.
We've undermined the physical because we lack spiritual discernment.
Yes. I think what you want to ask is, why should you spiritually discern a physical thing?
Yes, Father.
It is because of the spirit of the thing. Everything has a spirit that calls for spiritual discernment. for you to know the purpose of the thing.
Hey.
Okay, hear this. This earth that God formed, if you look at the raw material that produced the earth,
Yes, Father.
words.
Yes, Father.
The Bible declares the things that we see, things that appear, were not made by visible things, by things that are tangible. To think that you can have a spirit, right? And you come up with a mixture of spirits in form of words, and a physical world appears. Then what is physical about that earth? This earth is not as physical as you think. Though we refer to earth as a physical thing, this earth is spiritual. Like Pastor, you have tasted chicken before, right?
I have.
Yes. If we are to put a plate here and there is chicken in the plate and we close your eyes and there are different parts of the same body, do you have the ability to pick a liver, test it, and know this is a liver?
I do, Father.
You can tell, right?
Yes, I can.
Without seeing it.
Yes.
To imagine that it is one body, but it carries different flesh and different tastes,
Yes.
and it is one. That's the same with the spiritual dimension. The physical earth is a department in the spirit. Yet in its physical form, it is spiritual. In its physical form. Yes, it is spiritual. When God created the spiritual world, within that spiritual world, earth was formed. If you want to understand why I'm saying so, it is because even if you look at the globe, how it is rotating, there is no physical foundation that you can see. Around it is the spirit.
Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
What sustains, what keeps it in place, if it is not at the center of the spiritual dimension? It's a body part that God made visible to the physical man.
And yet it is spiritual.
It is spiritual. It is spiritual. So that if you want to have a different test of the spiritual dimension, you visit the physical dimension, which is also spiritual. It's a part of the spiritual body. Now,
Father, for us, it's taking a bit to sink in, honestly, Father, because you are challenging our very definition of the term spiritual. We've always thought if it is spiritual, it is intangible.
Yes, it can be seen.
Physically, it can't be seen. So to then settle it in my mind, Father, that the earth that I'm standing on, that we're sitting on at this very moment is spiritual.
yes, it's because there are spiritual things that are in physical form. They are allowed to appear. You see, the problem you have, people, is that you think if it is spiritual, then you don't have to see it.
Yes, Father.
Okay.
That has been the challenge, Father.
But then how are you going to appreciate the spiritual if you are not supposed to see it? Because the moment you see it, then it ceases to be spiritual, because you are saying if it is spiritual, you don't have to feel it. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to see it. The moment you see it, you say it is now physical.
Yes.
So how
yes.
are you going to appreciate the spiritual if it's not supposed to be seen? How do you appreciate it without seeing it physically? Hear this. Hear this. Spirits appear in different materials. They have different fibers. Okay?
Okay, fine. We're following. Fine.
Okay. I didn't want to touch on this, but for the sake of
Please do.
the people we have tonight,
Please do, Father.
let
Thank
me
you,
share
Father.
this with you. We are living in a supernatural dimension, but we are not cognizant to the spiritual activities taking place. That's why right now the problem you have of limiting the supernatural only to the invisible is that when then the supernatural materializes, when the supernatural manifests in a form that is physical, you would then call it physical. And you lose the joy of celebrating the manifestation of the supernatural, because it has now come to a realm that you think is physical.
Yes, Father.
But if you are spiritual enough, you may rejoice over the physical, because you know this is a materialization of the supernatural.
Oh.
For instance, you can't wait for that day that you walk on water, like Jesus walked on water,
Indeed, Father.
like Peter walked on water.
Yes, Father.
And that act, according to us, it is in the realm of the supernatural,
Indeed, Father.
because there is a violation of a law that is natural.
Yes, Father.
And walking on water and not sinking, it is a miracle to us. And yet, walking on a dry ground and not stumbling and not falling is also a miracle, given the obstacles, traps on the earth that you can't see. I shouldn't have said that because you didn't get it. What you think is a miracle, which is walking on water, you can't wait to do that before you celebrate that God is using you. And yet, walking on the earth, you must have an understanding of the obstacles,
In which form?
pitfalls, traps on the earth today by
Materialized.
reason of the devil. So many attacks right now, wherever you go on the earth, the devil is after you. Walking a kilometer without falling, it's a miracle worth celebrating. You can't wait to walk on water, and yet walking on the ground today, what is sustaining you and maintaining your balance is the supernatural. You are losing out on so many activities because you think they are physical. You think the miracle of raising the dead is the greatest. You can't wait to lay your hands on a dead man and call him back to life.
Yes, Father.
And Christians would celebrate that miracle because to them it is the ultimate. He raised the dead. And yet we undermine giving a living person a purpose. Because we are good at bringing a dead man back to life and then giving him the reason why he has been restored. There is no such a ministry. So easy to raise a man who was dead. And once he is back, he comes back to suffer. There are people that have been raised from the dead, and you wonder, you look at their life, you wonder, why did God even bring them back?
This is revolutionary, Father.
People that have been raised from the dead today, they are doing nothing to change their society, nothing to change their families. They are also being helped today. Then you begin to wonder, you tell me today, what Lazarus did for the kingdom of God after being raised from the dead.
Nothing that we know of, Father.
Okay? Tell me the books, how many books he wrote in the Bible. Tell me how many sick people that he healed.
None.
So the miracle was only on the raising of the dead. But the dead that got raised never got to find his purpose. So you can choose, if you want God to use you to raise the dead, it's one miracle. But there is another greater miracle of helping those already living to find their purpose.
Wow.
But if you compare the two, you'd choose the lesser one because it is magnificent.
Yes, Father.
It is spectacular. It is the supernatural.
It appears that way, Father.
We have got so many miracles happening, but in physical form. We are not celebrating those because we are not seeing the hand of God. Because we think it is physical. This is the supernatural in physical form. Now, when you are active in the spirit, active in the spirit, active in the spirit, active in the spirit, to discern spirits. These spirits that you are discerning are spirits of things, territorial spirits, spirits in places, in regions, in nations.
Yes,
You must get into a nation and discern the spirit that hangs over that area. Okay? And while you are doing so, you must understand now that you have the right as a child of God to understand spirits, discern, and to even test those spirits. Right? But this is what is happening now. If you see problems, I can tell you, I'll ask you at some point to list the problems that we have in Africa, one by one, and I'll tell you the nature of spirit that controls that particular problem.
Thank you, Father. Thank you. Thank you, Father.
And how you can overcome that problem by overcoming the spirit of the problem. People that are spiritual are the ones who are supposed to be leading. Spiritual, I didn't say Christians.
I need to understand that.
Because you thought Christians are spiritual.
Yes,
the fact that you're a Christian means you're spiritual. That's a different story. Okay. But hear this. There is the exercising of the spiritual mind. The exercising of the spiritual mind.
Hey. Thank you for that.
Can you sense the presence of spirits in a place? And when those spirits are grieved, when there is a transgression, when the spirit of a nation is against the citizens, if you are not careful, that spirit of that territory can actually influence your decision. It can influence your appointment. That spirit can influence your vote. So that you vote against your own success. What does that, I don't want to get, I promise not to get into that. Let me come back to this physical dimension that we think is non-spiritual. The earth. This is why I'm saying, if I tell you that the earth is spiritual, then you are left with only spiritual people qualified to rule on the earth. Given the spirituality of the earth,
Yes, sir.
the spirituality of the earth cause for spiritual leaders. Hear this. You know, the Bible tells us that God is omnipresent. Right?
Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
If God is omnipresent, it means He's everywhere at the same time. But not much has been done in terms of trying to find out how omnipresent is God. He is everywhere at the same time. To what extent? When we say God is omnipresent, someone must be able to explain to us the omnipresenceness of the presence of God. How is that possible that He can be omnipresent? He can be everywhere and still be in a non-believer, and the non-believer is not born again, and yet God is present in him. How do you explain that? Because if he is not in an unbeliever, then he is not omnipresent.
Yes, Father. But he has to be in an unbeliever.
Yet the non-believer is not a Christian. When God is, when we talk about His omnipresence, there is the part that, so many parts. Let me explain just one part. One part. Apart from Him being everywhere, apart from that, because He is, apart from Him being everywhere, in things, in people, in places, He has also established a system that ensures His omnipresence. A system of representation, where in every place there ought to be His representative. That by having the person that represents Him or the thing that represents Him in a place, you then have the omnipresence of God. Not by reason of having God in a place, but by reason of having a thing that represents God in a place. Okay? Hear this. Like, you see, when they were talking about this new technology that is coming to improve our communication, the 5G technology, right? And the greatest cost that they are going to incur is in establishing the towers.
Yes,
okay?
Yes, Father.
It has to come with towers.
Yes, Father.
And they were saying the difference with this one is that it requires more towers.
Yes, Father.
So after maybe 50 meters or even 100 meters, you need another tower.
Yes, Father.
Unlike the one that we have, the 4G, right? Which means we are going to have our place littered everywhere with those towers. The reason why you must have a tower here and after 100 meters you have another tower, it is because of the effectiveness. Let's say you have a tower here and you have a tower over there. They have a way of measuring the effectiveness of the tower, and now they know from here, when we get to this area, the people over here are no longer covered by the influence. So they are measuring the omnipresence of the tower.
Yes, Father.
So before the intensity of the tower fades away, there's need for another tower to take over.
Yes, Father.
From where this tower is ending,
Yes, Father.
then another one takes over from there. So when you have 20 of them, this entire place is covered by 20 towers.
Yes, Father.
Hear this. But in between, you don't have towers. You have the influence of the towers. In between.
Yes, Father.
I hope you're following.
We're
in between. Because you must have open spaces, driveways, houses in between.
Yes, Father.
Okay?
Yes, Father.
Right. But that entire place is covered by the omnipresence of the towers. But the towers don't have to be everywhere. It has to be in one place and then influence a range.
Yes, Father.
From where it ends, there must be another tower that covers another range.
Yes, Father.
And ultimately, the tower is not in every place. It's in one place surrounded with a radius of maybe 100 meters or 50 meters.
Yes, Father.
Okay? Now, you must understand the extent of God that makes him omnipresent.
Okay, Father.
And not him being everywhere. And yet his influence being everywhere. Okay. So what God did from the creation was to blend what we think is purely physical, because there is the physical which is really concentrated physical.
Yes, Father.
Okay? Then there is the physical on the earth, which is a bit superior in terms of quality. Things that do not fall under the material things, yet they are material things on the earth. For instance, remember he said, if I'm to stop the people from praising me now, stones are going to do so.
Yes, Father.
Yes, Father.
Okay. You see, like the way that they've wired a nation like United Kingdom.
Yes, Father.
Britain is under extreme surveillance system. When we talk of cameras, there is no corner not covered by a camera. They can investigate a matter in the court from the day you left the house. You went into the train, got to your workplace, you came back, you booked in a hotel. The day you enter, the day you... Everything. Without any eyewitness, cameras can testify against you. So if you're saying cameras are everywhere, it doesn't mean they are everywhere.
Yes, Father.
They are covering spaces, because in your house, on your table, you don't have a camera.
Yes, Father.
But the moment you come out, so they have made sure that when you get to the blind spot where one camera ends, another one has to pick you from there and accompany you wherever you go. So that system, people are just copying what God has done. The same thing that God did when he created this earth. There is so many things in the forest right now that do not belong there, which are there to represent him. This God that we are serving is being represented by so many things that we think are things that we think are stones that we think are just stones, and trees that we think are just trees. And yet some of them are a manifestation of God. A manifestation of God, not in human form, but in a tree form, in a mountain form, in a river form. Rivers that we think are rivers, and they are not rivers. I wish I had time to explain that.
Father.
So you can have trees in the forest dotted around the entire forest. What those trees are doing there is not just to give you oxygen, recording information. To an extent that you can't have a place where you can go and commit sin and nothing reports you to God. There are things that give God information, and those things are not even human beings. They are programmed to memorize, to store data. So, this is why people go to strange places where you can't even find them in the middle of the night, and yet what they do, they still follows them. Wherever you can go, whether it is fornication under a thick forest, there must be something in terms of in nature form, which is seeing what you're doing and recording everything that is taking place. And that thing is there to represent the omnipresence of God. God is everywhere by reason of something there that represents him. I don't know if you So if you're spiritual enough, you can walk in the forest and be able to sense the spirit of nature. And you can pick this tree here is not like the rest of the trees. It's here for a purpose.
Wow.
If you think it's just people who can record information or no. You have to think again. Remember, there was a tree in the garden. The tree of what? Knowledge. So there was knowledge in the tree. Information. There are trees that carry information. But because of our tradition, which was not set right, you can have very strange, like in Africa, there can be places where you have strange mountains, strange rivers where mysterious things happen, ridges that are so strange.
That's the explanation.
Yes. And people think maybe it's because of bad spirits in that place. You know, if the spirits in those places are that bad, you must be allowed to do bad things in that area. And yet most of those places, you are not even allowed to say bad words.
Bad words, yes. Yes, Father.
That tells you the nature that something good manifests in this place. You will have fruits in those places
Yes.
that are so big, and you're told, when you see such a fruit, don't be amazed. What makes you be amazed is because what you find in such a place is different from what you see in another place.
Yes,
Yes,
because of the intensity of the presence of the Spirit in that place.
The spirit of that thing in that place.
In that place. So these are places and locations that are there to represent God. Therefore, establishing the omnipresence of the presence of God, not because God is present everywhere, but because everywhere there is something that represents him. So now you see what I'm showing you. So if God, hear this now, this part I just want to throw it and then we'll move on to something else. If God is omnipresent, if God is omnipresent, like the Bible teaches us,
Yes, Father.
and theologians, they teach us that.
Yes.
If God is omnipresent, hear this, and hear me very well. There is no way that a God who is omnipresent, meaning that he is everywhere, all at the same time, there is no way such a God can then go on to create something in his own likeness, and that something that he created cannot be omnipresent to a certain extent. If he is omnipresent, and then he goes on to say, what I'm about to make is something that is like me, it means that something ought to have an ability to be omnipresent to a certain degree.
Please explain, Father.
I'm going to be in trouble with this.
Please explain, Father.
Please.
It's good for people to just quote what I've said. Anyone who criticizes my message without listening to all of it is always wrong every time.
Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
If what I'm saying is wrong, then you must go on to explain to people, was that image and likeness of God given to men fully delivered, or it was a flop? Did God fail to transfer? You must tell people that. If what I've just told you is unscriptural, then come out and tell people that what God wanted to make that day, he failed. If he succeeded in making a man in his image and in his likeness. It means within that likeness ought to be the omnipresence, ability, but to a certain extent, not like God. If God can be everywhere at the same time, and then he makes you in that likeness, and then you can only be in one place, you have a limitation. It means the likeness of God was not fully transferred. He failed to make you in his likeness, because it is because of his likeness that he is everywhere at the same time. So if you are limited only to one location as a spirit, you are not exhibiting and manifesting the likeness of God. You cannot be everywhere all at the same time, but you can be at least in different places. Because you're a small God. For example, I've told you, you are in your house, sleeping on your bed, yet you're dreaming you're in a different location. The reason why you are not dying here is because you have a spirit over there, and still you have the remainder of that spirit in you. Yes. You're in two places, two locations. If you're dreaming, you're sleeping. If I get to you, I can see you're breathing.
Yes, Father.
You're alive. You're not dead. And the reason why you're not dead is because you have the spirit. The spirit is in you, in the body. That's why the body is not dying. And yet you are not present here. You're in a different location somewhere, establishing the omnipresence at your size. That likeness of God in you allows you to move into different places. If you keep on exercising that likeness of God, you can get to a point where what you do there is actually done physically in a dream. When Joseph was sent by his father. Let me say this. Joseph was sent by his father to go and see how his brothers were doing.
That's right, Father.
And his father said to Joseph, go and find out how your brothers are doing. And the father gave Joseph the location. He said, they are in Shechem.
Yes, Father.
They are in Shechem.
Yes, Father.
That's in Genesis 37.
Yes, Father.
Read verse 12. I want you to hear what the man said, because he was found there.
Genesis 37 verse 12. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them.
Yes.
And he said unto him,
come, and I will send you unto them. Yes.
And he said unto him, here am I. And he said to him, go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren,
Yes.
and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron,
Yes.
and he came to Shechem.
Yes. From Hebron, he is now in Shechem,
Yes, Father.
in search of his brothers.
Brothers.
Yes.
And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field.
A certain man
Found him.
Behold, he was wandering. Many people are in that state of wandering. And this wandering is occurring after Joseph had had his dream.
Yes, Father.
You read from verse 1, you'll see that's where he had had his dream, and then he still wandered after having a dream. He got lost after a dream. But I wanted to see something. Whilst he was in the forest, he left Hebron, went to Shechem looking for his brothers, and he did not find his brothers in Shechem. Then a certain man with no name found him.
Found.
There was no house there. Yet a certain man found him. And this man was not even a shepherd. He was a certain man. And this man had to find Joseph. And there is a reason why it was the man who had to find Joseph and not Joseph finding the man. The reason why the man had to find Joseph, it is because it was the man who was searching for Joseph. Seek and you find. Joseph was not looking for the man, he was looking for his brothers. But there was a man who was looking for him to facilitate the fulfillment of his dream. The brothers had to be moved from Shechem to Dothan because that's where the highway was. And the Ishmaelites had to pass through Dothan, not Shechem, going to Egypt. So they had to be influenced by a certain man in Shechem to leave Shechem and go to Dothan. And the man remained in Shechem, waiting for Joseph to arrive and to tell him they are not here. So Joseph comes, he's looking for his brothers and is wondering, and the man found him. It wasn't Joseph who found the man, it was the man who found Joseph. So who was searching for who? It was the man searching for Joseph. This man is a certain man. I'll talk briefly about a certain man because we have beings today. And then when the man saw that this guy was wandering, he said, "What are you seeking?"
Yes, Father.
"What are you looking for?" He said, "I'm looking for my brothers." And he said, "I heard them saying, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So there was a recorder in that place. When words are spoken, something or someone is recording. They spoke to each other saying, "Let's go to Dothan." But there was another person, a member in that conversation who was not part of them, who heard what they said and remained with that information in Shechem, waiting to hand over that information to the intended person. The brothers are now in Dothan. They are not even aware that what they said is still playing in Shechem. It is still being heard. Their secrets are being revealed in Shechem. Because there are things everywhere recording every event, every utterance, every statement, every activity. Now this man is giving information to Joseph to say, they have gone to Dothan. They are no longer here. You go there and you find them. And then Joseph left this man. But this man was a certain man. His house is not there. What is he doing there? Are you sensitive enough? I don't really enjoy giving you my personal experiences, but maybe let me just give you one. I'm in How Mine, which was the second assembly given to me in the Apostolic Faith Mission. First, I was in Shangani Mine, which was a mine, of course, and then after that, I went to How Mine. Now, from the house we used to stay, it's like just 2 kilometers, there is a man-made dam, like a small lake. I think it's about like maybe we can say 600 meters by 600 meters. It wasn't that big. I think they had actually used excavators and dozers to create that pond. And there was fish in that little dam. And I would go there every morning. Sometimes I would fish from 8 to 10. Just 2 hours and I'm done. Sometimes I'd go there 7 up to 10. I would sit at the bank of the dam, cast my rod, my line into the water. And the majority of the fish in that dam was actually, I think there was only 2 types. The other was the bass fish. And I'm there every single month. It was like a commitment. I wasn't doing that for pleasure. We needed something to eat. Okay? So, what I would do then was to go there, fish. By 10, if I didn't catch anything, I would go for prayers. I would move from that place. There is I would say like 3 kilometers or so from that place, and there are people there right now who know about this place that I'm describing. I would then move away from the dam, go up there is a high mountain, and I would go beyond that mountain. There was a little mountain. And the reason why I had preferred that little mountain beyond the bigger mountain was because the location, there was the high density and the low density where miners used to stay, the location. It was like in the valley. So anything on the mountains, you would see it.
Okay.
That's why I'd prefer going beyond the bigger mountain. And I would go to the smaller mountain behind that larger mountain. I would go there and spend the rest of the day praying. So what I would do is fish for about 3 hours from the bank of the dam. If I catch anything, I wouldn't go for those prayers. You have to hear this. Because then I have fish which needs to be taken back home. Otherwise it rots. You can't spend the whole day in the mountain with food. So if I catch, I go back home. If I don't, then I go for prayers. I want you to follow this. So this day I was fishing from 7. It's almost 10 now. I haven't caught anything, and there wasn't much big fish there because you would have poachers coming in during the night and casting their nets. So it was so hard to catch even a single fish in that dam. So whilst I'm fishing, here comes a certain man. He says, "Oh, how are you doing?" I said, I'm doing fine. "Oh, are you catching?" I said, "Hey, I've been here for about 3 hours now. I think nothing is happening here." And then that man, what he did was there was like very high grass, like the weeds that you usually find close to the river. Then he stepped on one of the weed, very, very huge like this. And then he stepped on it with his shoes, and then he sat on that. So whilst he was sitting there, we began to talk. And he was asking me about the types of baits that I was using and so on. And after a while, I said, I think my time is up. I need to go, because it was almost 10 when he arrived. I said, I need to go. I need to go home now. Then he said to me, Go home. Why go home? Yet you didn't catch anything. Are you not supposed to go for prayer? Then I looked at him, I said, what did you say? Then he changed the story. He changed the story completely. Then I said, but are you a Christian? Are you born again? He said, I'm not. I don't go to church. Then I said, but you said, because there's something strange that you said. I said, I'm going home now, but you said you can't go home. You have to go for prayer because I didn't catch it. Because that's exactly what I do every day. Is it because you are seeing me every time? Do you work here? He said, I don't stay here. I don't stay here. But to me, it was strange. Then I began to think maybe this person stays somewhere close by. Maybe he would see me leaving this place, going up the mountain, or maybe something like that. Then he then asked me a question that I cannot tell you here. When I was about to answer that question, he picked the exact words from my mouth. The exact words. Then I said, are you sure you don't go to church? And he said, don't keep asking me about that question. I told you, he actually said, I don't believe in going to church. That's what he told me. This man was in an overall coat. One of his leg was actually folded. The trousers, quite old. So I was now unpacking my rod. You know, it was very, very long, so you'd join it in between and then and then I was preparing my thing. I said, now I have to go for prayers. Like you said, I was just laughing with him, like you said. I said, okay. And then I said to him, now I'm leaving you. He said, okay, I can accompany you for now. And then we left the place, we left the dame. And then to my amazement, I realized after passing the tallest mountain, but all along from the dam, he was in front. I was behind him. We were talking. I realized after passing the first mountain that he is the one who was in the front.
Leading the way.
Okay.
Leading the way.
So we got to this, after the bigger mountain, there was a small river that was passing by. And then he said, you know this river? This river never runs dry, this river. It's always flowing, except for this year. This is the only time that this river is dry. There's always enough water in this river that feeds into that little dam. That's why they created that dam. It was because of this river. And I said, but you said you don't stay here in this village. And he said, yes, I don't stay here. But I said, but you are saying this river has never gone dry. And he started laughing. He said, I know where the river is coming from. Maybe that's where I stay. That's what he said. I don't stay here, but maybe I know where the river is coming from, and that's where I stay. He was saying some strange things. Now I'm realizing beyond that mountain now that this man was in front all along. How does he know?
Right.
When we got to that place where I would spend most of the day praying, he got there, he sat on the rock. So I said to him, I wanted to know whether he knew. I said, are we still going or you just want to rest? And then he started laughing again. That day, from the time that we arrived, it was still a.m. Until around 4, I didn't pray that day. We were talking. we were talking some of the things that I'm seeing happening today were discussed. Now when we were done, he took a stick and he gave me another stick, and then he took his and he said, normally when you're going down the mountain, you need to be using sticks. So when we're coming back now, he said, you can lead the way. So we were coming down that mountain, and I said, but you're going back. You said you don't stay in the village. Where are you going? I asked him that question, and then I repeated the question. I said, you are going back with me, but you said you don't stay here. You see how mine is right, like in the center of a very huge forest. You don't find locations close by. It is almost like getting late, and I'm wondering, you said you don't stay in the village, and yet we are now going, all this while we are going back. He's not responding to me. Then at that moment, that's when I turned back, nowhere to be found. I could not find him. It wasn't like the only place where you would have green grass was all around the dam. The mountains, there was nothing, plain open, no leaves, nothing. I couldn't find him. At that moment, I had a rush in my body. It was like my head just split. The pain was so terrible. I had goosebumps all over, and my hair just stood up like that. I couldn't see the man. How I lost the stick that I was carrying. I came down that mountain, shaken. It took me days to recover from that experience. But the following day, though I wasn't feeling well, I said, was that a vision? Was that a dream? What was that all about? I had to go back to the dam. I went back to the dam. I had to look for that place where he sat on. The grass was still in that same shape, folded. As a sign somebody really was sitting there. And from that place, imagine, pastors, I followed the footsteps. I had to follow those footsteps to this exact place where we spent the day. I was seeing my foot and his foot. We were together. But then I said, this man, I have to find you. Finding his feet, even mine, coming down that mountain, I couldn't. Because I wanted to know, how did he just disappear? So I could see his foot going, but coming back, nothing. I didn't find anything. Then I knew this was a certain man. The following day, though I wasn't feeling well, I said, let me go back and fish. If I tell you how many types of fish that I caught in that little dam, you won't even believe it. You won't even believe it. Types of fish that they've never found in that dam. 2 days after that experience, I went back to fish. Though my body was so weak, they are masters, these people, when it comes to disguising themselves. They are bodies, people that appear to be physical on the earth today, who are there to govern territories. Are you sensitive enough to notice the difference? The Bible tells us that you should always entertain strangers. For some entertained angels unawares. Whoever taught us that angels have wings wanted us to miss them. when they appear. You are now discerning angels by their physical appearance. If you go by discerning the spirits of individuals, you will understand there are people present today who may seem to be like your next door. They come here on earth, they build houses. They can stay together as human beings, and yet both of them are not. They are carrying a certain mandate that you're not even aware of. If you're going to wait until you see an angel coming with wings, my brother, there are angels in the Bible that would visit you. You would cook for them. They would eat, sit on a chair. But are you sensitive enough to discern the spirit of a thing? They put on form so that you don't even pay attention to them. Things that I was told that day, I've seen, I've watched them happen. Those experiences, if I start getting into my own personal experiences, I won't even get into the Bible. I remember sometime, very young in the things of God, even before I was this excited about spiritual things, in a vision, praying, a scripture was written with clouds, and I saw the book, I saw the chapter, and I saw the verse. It was written actually verse. Then I went to my pastor back then, and I told him, I saw something that looks like a chapter, like a Bible verse. And the reason why I thought like it was a chapter is because it was written verse. That's the understanding that I had. And I said, but the book, I looked for that book in any Bible. I'm not finding that book. But there was a verse. Is there anything, a book like that comes with the verses? He said, what was the book? And then I told him the book, the chapter, and the verse. For all information, he started laughing at me. He called me out by name. He said, "Man, you now reading Apocrypha." He was laughing at me. There are so many things about this God that we are going to find out later, which are not there in the Bible. You must know that the men who wrote the Bible were the ones inspired, not the ones that compiled it. The men that wrote the Bible are the ones inspired to write the books, not the men that compiled the books. They had to put together something that was systematic, easy to understand. They left out so many other mysteries concerning this God. It calls for discerning of spirits to locate missing books. Majority of them are wrong, are false. But can you discern the accurate ones and still find God in a book that you don't have in the Bible? These beings are present today on the earth. And some of the people that once died years ago, I don't want to get into that. Please, God help me. I don't want to get into. There are beings that are in the class of, they are called Metatrons, especially in the book of Enoch, that are in between archangels and human beings. Even this angel that used to lead the children of Israel into the promised land, he is called a Metatron angel. When these ones appear to you, even Enoch himself, he was transformed into that being. Now, that sounds like the Transformers, if you've ever watched. And then you may think that that's where we are getting. No, that's where they got it from. An ability to transform and put on matter so that you can interact with those in the physical dimension that are not paying attention to spiritual visitations. So, who are these beings? If we disobey them, if we insult them, it's as good as Belshazzar, who ordered that they bring vessels from the house of God. He didn't understand the spirit of the things. By abusing the physical, the spirit of the furniture, the utensils, rose up against the entire nation, and his kingdom ended that same night. Failure to discern the spirit of an object. He transgressed. And the spirit of things in the palace fought against him. To think that we have a hand of God coming not to redeem the cups and the plates. God who allows you to steal something that has his spirit, and then he doesn't come to rescue those cups. They stay in your palace until you abuse them, and then a hand comes to announce an end to your kingdom. That is why most of the countries, they have been delisted. When nations are being discussed, certain nations are not touched. There are nations that have ceased to be nations because of a transgression against territorial spirits. He drank from the cups that had been separated, cups that Solomon had called God, invited God to enter into those objects. Now there was the Spirit of God in the cups. He said, bring those. When he touched that spirit that day, the kingdom ended. Are you aware of such beings in your country? That is the issue now. You must know people in your territory that should never be touched. If you still think people are the same, then that's why you are in a problem that you are in right now.
Wow. Wow.
I want our viewers to understand. I didn't want to get into all these things because this is midweek service. But I want people to hear me. You must raise your antenna and be able to pick, to identify, to distinguish the difference in things and in people and in places. We are here for an assignment. Do not underestimate God's investment on the earth. Not everything physical on the physical earth is physical, because the earth itself is spiritual, because the majority of it is spiritual. The composition, the biggest, greatest ingredient is the spirit. And the smallest ingredient is the physical. What made the visible is the invisible. What is the invisible? The word. He created worlds by the word. And the word produced the material, the physical. You can't completely extract the spiritual from the earth if the earth was formed by the Spirit. That is the ingredient. The Spirit is the ingredient that formulated the earth. child of God, you must grow to a level where you know that you are above everything that God created. And God placed spirits into those things just so that you can control them and dominate them. The power you have over matter, the power you have over objects, the power you have over snakes and scorpions, that power is over their spirits. By controlling the spirit of a thing, ultimately, you control the thing. When we get to the solution, where we begin to solve the poverty of nations, then you understand that poverty is nothing but a spirit. So I want you to keep on following on this subject. We have to stop here for tonight. But I want you, pastors, to also prepare yourselves as well, and all of you watching me, prepare yourselves again. Sunday we have an outstanding session, a beautiful service, and I want you to be ready. And we are going to be ministering the grace of God, abundance to God's people. As long as you have been obedient, I'm telling you, my brother, my sister, you are in for the greatest surprise of your lifetime. Things that you have never even prayed for. God will do wild things that are beyond your imagination. Whatever you asked God for was small compared to what the Lord is about to do. And make sure that you are open up, ready to receive, because you will be receiving this coming Sunday. But for tonight, we have to let the people go. Thank you, pastors, for having me. Thank you.
My Father, I think like what Pastor Kwarampa was saying, I think this is one of the first messages that I've heard him from the beginning to the end, where he says, I'm following. Not I understand, but I'm following.
No.
Father, the dimension of the word that you are bringing to us, like he said, it's revolutionary. Discerning the spirituality of the physical. My Father, in theology, I believe this is a turning point. Because what you have done is you have extended, let me call it the boundary of thought, which was a limiting factor in us understanding spiritual things. I can never come to a point where I say, I've understood what you have said today or this evening, but I believe that my scope of thought when it comes to understanding the spiritual and understanding even dominion, my Father, you have extended it in a way that nobody could have ever done. And I really want to thank God for you, because it is only one who has had an experience, who understands the passages and the ways of the spiritual, who can come and teach us these things. My Father, indeed, this is coming from a season of partnership. Thank you for giving us that opportunity, and thank you for giving us this word. And I kindly ask you to give us the grace to understand. Thank you, my Father. Thank you, my Father.
Father, we are just overwhelmed, Father. We are overwhelmed, Father. We are overwhelmed. Thank you, Father. Oh, wow. We are coming out of partnership. And this Sunday, we're getting into another special time. We believe that what we're about to receive now, and what we're receiving now, is of a caliber that we could have never imagined or thought. This is a visitation. This is a visitation. Till we meet again next time.